This is going to sound strange, but I'm getting signs from the universe from my oatmeal. Now, I'm obviously not being serious, but let me give you some context. After about a year or so of trying and failing to cook the perfect oatmeal, the kind that everyone's raving about these days, I finally managed to cook one I genuinely liked, and I really, really don't like cooking. I'm not good at it. So that made me think of how the fact that I cooked good oatmeal aligned with my life going in the right direction, and how you can see symbols everywhere you are, even though the next time I did oatmeal it didn't taste as good, so damn the signs. We're still going to talk about it, even if it doesn't make any sense. Because the thing is that these symbols don't really exist. We create the symbols. Then we might also talk about semiotics and signifiers and signifieds and symbols and language. That said, we are so used to symbols and language, we don't even know what we would say to each other without them. I mean, we wouldn't say anything to each other because we can't communicate without symbols. If communication itself is a symbol, then what isn't? Maybe that's why it's so hard for us to understand our relationship to our own selves, because it is the only thing that goes beyond the symbolic field. Maybe we don't even consciously witness some of our inner communication because it's so hard for us to move beyond symbols. I guess that might be a topic for another video. Symbols also create our identity. According to Jean Dalby-Clift, we not only add our own interpretation to symbols. For example, I finally make a good oatmeal, meaning my life is finally on track. But we also create these personal symbols, which she calls core images of a person. Because really, how else are we going to create ourselves? If we create a mental image of ourselves, even though we can never grasp ourselves other than through experience, then we must do it through symbols. But in order to do that, we must create symbols. What I'm trying to communicate here is that I think we should acknowledge symbols, all kinds of symbols, no matter how far-fetched, as a regular part of our reality, but also something that showcases a higher reality. And we need this higher reality because it creates a balance in our attempts to deal with the grittiness of this reality. In a paper I once read on the significance of symbols, it says, "Symbols and myths are an expression of man's unique self-consciousness, his capacity to transcend the immediate, concrete situation and see his life in terms of the possible, and that this capacity is one aspect of his experiencing himself as a being having a world." And that bit, having a world, is as if we put our own mark on the world through creating symbols. We make ourselves at home in the world, so to speak, by creating those personal links no one else has access to and adding our own meaning to them. Symbols also create a temporal awareness of who we once were, who we are, who we might become, and so on. Even though life is far from linear, symbols give us an alternative temporal view of our lives, where we see connections we might have not seen before. But those symbols allow us to construct our own personal narrative, not just identity. And honestly, sometimes it's just about wanting to admit something to yourself, something you might have not admitted to yourself otherwise, and to use this event or object you see as a symbol to do it. I'm not talking about looking at the world and seeing magic everywhere you are, because I know that sounds a bit too cheesy for some people to take it seriously, including myself some of the time. But if we steer ourselves towards the symbol, choosing to see it, then the path becomes ours. We create it. We don't just follow some spiritual universal road. We tread the road and make it spiritual, universal, symbolic. So it's this symbol, this sign that reminds me that I can see the world as being okay, that I can see my life as being okay. But at the end of the day, it's my choice to believe that things will be okay, because I'm open to letting myself see these connections and be inspired by something that holds something else within. Now, my question is, since we keep using symbols that are agreed upon in everyday life, for example, speaking, waving, showing a finger, then why aren't we more attuned to seeing symbols that are not necessarily established or agreed upon? Symbols that are more intuitive and less formulaic. For example, let's consider dreaming. It's funny how prone we are to see symbols in dreams, but not that much in reality when we're awake. It's as if the irrationality of dreams is an excuse for us to dig deeper, since nothing makes sense anyway, and then we might as well look for the one thing that does make sense. But why can't we dig deeper into the seeming rationality of everyday life, too? I mean, those signs we get in our dreams, Those details that we pay attention to that seem to be telling us something, they're there while we're awake too, only we're too busy being rational and logical to delve more deeply into these mundane things. But we are as capable of seeing symbols while we're awake as we are when we're sleeping and dreaming. We just need to stop assuming that dreams are the only space where we can let ourselves let go. Life is not always rational, and neither are we. In the dreams, it's fine that it isn't rational. But somehow it becomes an issue when we dare to believe that waking life is, to an extent, irrational. But if we let ourselves assume that almost nothing makes sense unless we try to see into it more deeply, then we can discover fascinating things about ourselves while we're awake. Maybe dreams serve as contrast, because you have this huge chunk of nonsense, and then there's one familiar thing that catches your attention. While in waking life, everything is familiar enough, so everything merges together. But if you look deeply enough, it isn't. Of course, I'm not saying we should be alert 24/7 and keep asking ourselves, oh, what does this mean, or what does that signify? Every single second something happens. Sometimes we just intuitively feel that we're in need of a symbol, something between the lines, and we're more receptive to it then. All I'm trying to say is that we shouldn't repress it or push it away. Since I'm talking about this, I don't think I can ignore the topic of synchronicity. I am a bit skeptical about this because of the whole popular discourse around it, but I do think we can bring it down to earth a bit and see it not as something almost supernatural, but something we can use. And the way I see synchronicity is that it means being more attuned to your surroundings and actually trying to see how something you notice aligns with what you need at the time. And if we assume that it is true that all of us are one giant interconnected blob, then obviously you can find answers to all your problems everywhere, because you are sort of more or less everything. You just have to change the mode in which you look, at least for a while. In the book Synchronicity, Mark Holland says that the primary reality of synchronicity is not intellectual but emotional. This also suggests that believing in synchronicity is helpful in developing our sense of wonder and awe, and being able to refresh our view of the world every day. And that can help with a bunch of things. With remaining interested in the matters of everyday life, with being less serious about ourselves, and just with being in awe of life itself. And sure, synchronicity and symbols all around us may be an absurd idea, but why not embrace it? So what that it's absurd? What's the harm in that? I would just say that you should remember not to take it too far and to believe that the universe is sending you signs personally and that it is there for you. Because this isn't about you, it's just about what you decide to do. It doesn't come to you, it comes from you. I think it's key here, because you shouldn't sit around and wait for signs, or however you want to call it, to come to you. You create them, even if it does seem like they spring upon you all of a sudden. Sometimes we just see what we want to see, and that's valid, because the symbol may not be real or make sense objectively, but it doesn't really matter what it is, because it still uncovered something you needed to uncover. If I feel like I need the universe to tell me that I'm on the right track, to reassure me, then I have every right to see the signs of the universe in my oatmeal. Even if every other oatmeal I make ends up being crap because I have no talent for cooking. Oh well, at least I got it right once. I don't even like oatmeal that much, to be honest. And if synchronicities are considered to be miracles, as they sometimes are, then it just means we create our own miracles. Because what's the point of a miracle if we don't acknowledge it as one? Miracles depend on us seeing them as such, on us reinforcing their status as miracles. Synchronicity is not magic, it's only a tool, and we decide if we put it at the bottom of the toolbox or if it's a go-to thing we use in everyday life when we need something to reassure us that our lives have meaning. As I said before, I know the discourse around synchronicity often involves terms that make it both so high up above and inaccessible, but also hard to believe sometimes. And I don't want to look at it that way because it separates the topic from reality, and more importantly, from our own agency. But I think our agency, our choice, our willingness is key. There is no light at the end of the tunnel if we don't find the light switch ourselves. And we do live in the 21st century. There is always a light switch. You could potentially treat finding this video and this channel as a symbol of some sort, if you want. Maybe you're in need of engaging in some self-understanding. Maybe you're interested in an ambivalent stance on personal development. Maybe you need something that I give without even knowing that I give it. Or maybe you just need to waste your time on YouTube at this point in life. Who knows? In this case, do consider supporting this channel through liking, sharing, subscribing. You know the drill. And thank you for your time.